Doesn't say live on my thing.
It says live on mine.
Okay, we'll go on the assumption that yours. There we go. We'll go on the assumption that Russ is correct, which sometimes isn't the best thing to do.
Yeah, what are we doing with that? Where's that coming from exactly?
Yeah, I didn't know.
Hi, everyone. I am driving.
We are filming a moving violation here as Eck is driving back home.
Oh, I don't know if it's illegal to podcast while driving. I am doing hands-free for what it's worth, so that's good. I hope I sound okay. Let me know if I don't. But no other choice. Sorry, I had a family thing I had to do obligation-wise, and I will be home before the end of the show. So right now, if you're keeping track, we're going on to Route 1 North.
So Philadelphia, so Pennsylvania State Troopers, he's going down Route 1
North. Follow me now. Route 1 North, we're going to be taking that to the turnpike, and then they'll be home pretty soon after that. So, yeah, that's pretty much, I think, how this is going to play out, hopefully, with any luck at all. Who knows? But anyway, yeah, so this is the only way to do the show today, so I apologize ahead of time.
Well, but a couple pre-show things here, Ak. One just from the world of sports, and there's been tampering situations in the NHL. The one that springs to mind was Ron Wilson when he was coach of the Maple Leafs. I believe it was in 2012 when the Sedins were free agents, and and he went on Toronto radio and said, "Oh yeah, we'd love to have the Sedins in Toronto," and they were still under contract to Vancouver. They weren't free agents yet, and I know that the Leafs got fined. It was never publicized how much, but today there's been talk over the last week or two regarding some tampering between the LA Lakers and Paul George. I think.
We lost Mike.
Hey, Russ.
Yeah, there's some sort of NBA tampering. I don't know what team Paul George is on, but basically the Lakers are getting fined $500,000 because he's still under contract. He's not out of his contract until next year, but $500,000 is nothing. Like, let's be real. Like, that's for a franchise.
Yeah, I mean, it's NBA, right. For those guys, it's like the cost of doing business, right?
Yeah, I mean, take away the first-round pick. They already traded one of them. They only have one first-round left, I think. Take away that. I mean, if you take away a first-round pick, then there will be, some backlash. Now, they basically have the inside track on this guy for next year.
Right, and they paid $500,000 for it.
Right. I mean,
it's not so bad.
It's a weird way to run things.
The whole, the crazy thing about that this tampering thing ever really gets actually counted is bizarre to me, because there's so much of it happening all the time, and I know you have to have rules and you have to have laws about these kind of things. And it's funny, it's actually only, I would say, and this is going to sound strange, but really it is monitored by the fact that what are we saying here? Webcast just dropped off.
What
all
day?
Right, so we have Mike just texted us the webcast just dropped off.
Oh, okay, great.
You may have to invite us again.
Yeah. All right, we'll hang up.
Okay, yep, you got it. It's tricky.
Well, folks, Google was having some problems, and I'm not sure if we're live. It says live on the top of the screen here, but we have to wait for Russ and Ack to show back up. So this will be edited out, believe me, or you'll just get the chance to look at my wonderful face for a few minutes while we get everybody back on the show. So just hold on for a second. Russ, we're live.
Okay, it's going really slow, just letting you know.
I mean, can you hear me? And
Yep.
Okay.
So we were talking about the Lakers pick, and it looks like
the Lakers got fined $500,000. We'll be probably doing some editing on this show since we had a gap of about 5 minutes.
They said they should lose a first. They do have a first if it's like pick number 1 or 6 through 30. It's one of those protected, ridiculous things. But the idea is just take away picks. Don't charge money, because money to a Lakers franchise means nothing. And now they got the inside track on this guy for next year. If they want to get LeBron there, and now they sort of whistled in his ear, like this is, we don't see this in other sports. We do see tampering. That's not what I mean. What we don't see are a couple of players sort of getting together to go to the next team. We don't see that.
Yeah, and I mean, as we've seen in the NBA the last few years, right now what's going on is, it's the LeBron, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh model. 3 superstars, get them all together. I actually think Golden State superseded that, because now they really have 4 superstars when it comes to Thompson and Curry and Durant, and they have a phenomenal team. And the Lakers, after being going through years of mediocrity, they're trying to get back to being the destination franchise, like they were with Kareem and Magic, and then later with Kobe and then Shaq. So they want to put themselves back on the map. But okay, let's move on to
I mean, look, in the NHL, what if Yager, Iginla, and Cody Franzen decided to all go to one team? Oh, never mind.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. We know 1 45-year-old, 1 40-year-old, and 1 31-year-old who has mobility issues. So yeah. Anyway, so there was a piece of video out there for Jordin Tootoo that you wanted to discuss.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite players that have played in the NHL. He's just, he's a fun-loving guy. He's a great interview. I remember his draft, and so he's a big personality. And so I went onto Twitter and I saw a video of him where he's having a gender reveal party. And like a year and a half ago, I didn't even know what that is, because just like you, Mike, I don't have kids. I have pets. And so, but a gender reveal party, for people that don't know, this is a way for somebody to get all their friends together, siphon them for gifts, and then let them know what they're having, whether it's a boy or a girl. And then when they do, you can give them more gifts at that time too. So anyhow, they at least did this in a very fun way, something I've never seen. Like a lot of times there's been like balloons that drop out and whatever color, whether it's, pink for a girl and blue for a boy. We've seen a lot of different things. He is on the dock somewhere. I'm presuming up at the lake house.
It's his lake house. It's his lake house.
Yeah. And he's wearing flip-flops and he's shirtless and he looks like he's driving a golf ball, and he hits the golf ball and it explodes and a pink gas comes out. So obviously he's having a girl. So congrats to them. And then he jumps in the water. I just thought it was fun, a fun little video.
Yeah, it's cute. I just like you said. I mean, and again, I'm not married. I don't have kids. But it's sort of a scam. It's like here's
it is a scam. You if you're inviting me to a gender reveal party, you are now expecting a gift. Now am I going to give you another gift when you have the actual kid? No. You get one or the other out of me.
The only gift I'm bringing Jordin Tootoo, if he invited me to that party, is I'd bring a case of beer so that people could drink. That's my gift.
There you go.
But that's about it. Okay. Eck will be home in a few minutes, so we'll forge ahead here as best we can, and talk about some things in the NHL. But let's do the intro
stuff.
Hockey stuff. Yes, stuff going on in the NHL. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Thursday, August 31st, 2017.
And I'm going to see Green Day. Woo! Yay! Oh, I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
I'm Michael Lagello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Now, you're going to see Green Day. I'm going to see you too next week. But, Russ, this is the last day of the last month that there is no hockey. Because
hockey's been in my life all summer. Like, I don't know where you
are. No, I know, but I'm saying there's actually going to be games. There's going to be tournament games and exhibition games. So this was a month without NHL, any kind of semblance of NHL hockey. It was the only one.
When everybody bitches, it's funny. When everybody bitches about, like, rookie games and preseason games, like, that's the time when I'm busy. I try and catch as many of those as I can because a lot of players are trying to make teams, and I want to see how they are. And then a lot of times when they don't make that team, they either go back overseas or they go back to junior hockey. And so I focus in on those guys where I get a lot of that, casual fans or even pretty good fans are like, they don't really care that much about it. They just want the regular season to begin. But for me, it's actually kind of important.
Yeah. And, not that there wasn't any.
That's a great comeback, by the way.
Yeah. You're welcome. Not that there was any news. The lack of news in August, because there was some news, the Will Butcher news, the Alex Kerfoot news, but now the last few days it's been PTOs, and one player that we're probably not going to see get a tryout invite is former Canadian, former Dallas Star, Arizona, Nashville Predator, Mike Ribeiro. And Russ, I've never read, and I only read a part of the article, I've never read an agent come out with both barrels like Ribeiro's agent did in this article. It was in was it in La Presse? I'm not sure. It was a French newspaper.
Yeah.
But basically, it was clearly his agent is indicating that Ribeiro, that his career is over with. There are no indications of any interest, and he doesn't seem to be interested in continuing his career with where his life is at right now.
Yeah, and, in a way, the agent could be doing him a favor because, the article said that he has an alcohol dependency. He went through the NHL's program, he detoxed, and it maybe hasn't worked. And so this might be a way of shocking him into getting it to work. So even though it may seem harsh from that agent perspective and in print, he might be helping him in the long run.
Well, I don't think – I think there are workplace guidelines that prevent a team or an official from a team to do this, but his agent may not be bound by those restrictions. And, from what I read, there hasn't been an inquiry from a team in the U.S. or to a team in the NHL, a minor league team, or a European team. So right now, it looks like Mike Ribeiro's career is over with. And there was I'm not going to go into the details of the article, but it talks about his being in sort of a substance abuse rehabilitation. And this is a it's sad because he did have a lot of talent. I remember him in Washington where he was a really effective number 2 center for them, but especially on the power play. But at 37 years old, I mean, with some players, it's the fact that they've slowed down. With Ribeiro, I think it's the off the ice situations.
Yeah, it is. And look, I mean, at the end of the day, we've seen the last of Mike Ribeiro. It's a shame, but that's the way it is. Like, we'll just have to move on from it. But we certainly won't be talking about him anymore as far as UFAs. Although I really kind of hope we don't even bring up the UFAs anymore this year. But I'm pretty sure we're going to, because something's going to happen, and then we'll be talking about him again. Not him, but other UFAs.
Well, yeah, and let's just touch on that for a second.
Yeah, I thought we were done for the year. Now we're not. Now you want to touch on it?
Of course, of course. I don't think a player like Jarome Iginla is going to accept a PTO. I think he's, maybe I'm wrong. I know that players at the tail end of their career, maybe pride will prevent them from doing things of that nature. For some reason, am I wrong that Brendan Shanahan took a PTO from Philadelphia late in his career? Wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's a Hall of Fame player, and I'm not, I'm sure Iginla is probably not above it, but I probably prefer to get a 1-year deal. But I keep going back with a guy like Iginla, and if you look at the list of available players on Cap Central or on Cap Friendly, I mean, there are some good players out there, but
there are. I think these players, Hall of Fame bound or otherwise, when their career's over, are going to accept PTOs because otherwise they're not playing. They're just not going to play.
Yeah, well, and I mean, yeah, it's just, it's not well, I'm trying to, let me see if I can pull up Cap Friendly here just to get the list of some available names here. And, I was going through this yesterday just to see who, and we talked about this on a previous show about like who was going to get an invite. Iginla made $5.3 million last year. He's obviously not going to get close to that. He played 80 games at age 40 and scored 14 goals. So I think it's clear he's still got something left.
I think so, but others don't think so.
Or maybe he is holding out for that 1-year deal and holding out for guaranteed money.
I mean, he's definitely a reasonable guy. And so I just have a feeling this has to do with the right team not being interested in him and him just wanting the right deal or he's just not going to bother. I think that's what it is. I do have breaking news.
Go ahead.
So it looks like the Phantoms have signed Leland Irving. If you remember Leland Irving.
Former Calgary?
Calgary, yeah. Really good kid. I mean, he's 29 now. He did have a 2.18 ERA, goals against last year, and right now he's now thrown into the mix with Stellaris and Lyon, but he'll probably be in the ECHL. That's
here. Let me ask this because I've always liked, and I want to get back to the UFA.
And by the way, his nickname is the Doctor. I remember that from when at the draft. I thought it was a great nickname. Like, he actually looks like a doctor. He's a very looking guy.
Well, Julius Irving was Dr. J, so right. Maybe that has to do with that.
Maybe.
Today in baseball is the waiver trade deadline. On July 31st, it was the non-waiver trade deadline, which means the players don't have to clear waivers. And now, over the last month, there has been a process where a player is placed on waivers. A team can, like, say, for example, Jose Bautista is placed on waivers by Toronto. If the Boston Red Sox put in a claim, Toronto can yank him back and keep him.
Right.
or they can try to make arrange a trade, or they can just give them to the Red Sox. I like this sort of waiver trade deadline. There's a lot of tactics going on. There's a lot of blocking going on. I know that Marco Estrada, Blue Jays pitcher, was claimed by the Yankees to prevent him from going to another team.
Right.
I would like to see this, and again, it would have to be signed off on by the PA in the next CBA. I would like this to be an option in the NHL to have a waiver trade deadline, because I think it gives the opportunity for a team. Maybe they couldn't move that player in a traditional deal, that maybe it gives them an extra or a couple weeks or something like that after the regular trade deadline to do something.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't like it for hockey for a couple of reasons. I mean, hockey, because of the nature of injuries, a lot more injuries in hockey than baseball. I think you're now giving a crutch to teams that maybe have injuries late, but they're a great team and now have the ability to go get a player. Like, I think you're helping some of those teams that have an embarrassment of riches already. Like, I think that's one thing, because none of the bottom feeding teams are going to be claiming anybody. So that's one thing. I think the other thing is Major League Baseball has no competition. Like, players either play in Major League Baseball, or they play in the minors, or they don't play.
Or they play in Japan.
Japan or independent leagues, but they don't really compete directly with Major League Baseball the same way like the KHL does with the NHL. And I think that's a factor too. I do. And I just think you may not have enough players to play around with that, because it seems like now, like Athanasu, that any player that sort of has a beef, they just go to the KHL. And so, for teams to waive players, with a hard cap the way they have, it just doesn't seem like a good idea.
Well, we'll talk about Athanasu in a minute, but just going down this list,
remember, baseball has no cap.
Right, I know that, and
I know. I'm just letting people know. I'm not saying you don't know, Mike. I'm talking to the audience. And I'm not saying the audience doesn't know, in case there is somebody who doesn't know. Anyhow.
Cousin Eddie doesn't know. Cousin Eddie does not know anything. No, just kidding. I'm just kidding, Cousin Eddie. You're my buddy. You're my friend. I'm just doing this because right now.
He's going to put the devil horns up now again. No. That's what he does when he doesn't like something.
Yes. Okay. Of the top 15 players that are still UFAs based on what they made last year, I look at this list. And, a guy like I keep going back to Dennis Weidman. I think Dennis Weidman still has something left, but I continue to think I'm surprised that on August 31st he hasn't received an invite, and it smacks.
I think it just stems back to the issue of before this past year, and I don't think teams are going to deal with it anymore.
It's a non-political Colin Kaepernick in a way.
Yeah. I just think they're staying away from it.
Yeah. Brooks Laich seems very happy posting Instagram videos with his new wife, and I can't begrudge him one bit, but I don't know. He played half an AHL season and then disappeared in the last couple months with the Marlies. So I don't think there's a likelihood of him unless he's got some sort of deal that, in the next couple of weeks, I don't think he's a good candidate. Milan Mihalik was a similar situation with Toronto. He disappeared, and he's off. The thing is, Mihalik, we mentioned him yesterday. He's only 32 years old.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. He gets hurt every year now.
We've talked about Jágr ad nauseum. We mentioned Ribeiro. Brian Giunta is 38, I believe. Yeah, 38 years old. And he had 35 points last year. Is this someplace where, like, the Devils go, or
maybe the Devils, maybe even the Sabres just invite him in just to have him in camp and just see.
Or who was he drafted by, and where did he play the majority of his early career in Toronto or with Lou Lamoriello? Is that a possibility?
That's a possibility.
As we talked about, a lot of these PTOs are favors.
Yeah.
And, maybe Toronto would be in the – I don't think there's a chance in hell if he was invited that he would get an opportunity with Toronto because they're so loaded at forward. I think if they're going to go PTO, they're going to go defensively. Rob Scuderi, I think his career is over with. I mean, he just slowed down. Cody Franzen, here's another one, Russ.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, I think he's going to get an invite. Is he holding out for an invite from a team that he thinks he's got the best chance to make? Because
I don't know. I mean, the invites are going out now pretty fast and furiously, so it makes me wonder.
Well, I mean, we've heard rumors over the last month about New Jersey, about Chicago, about Philadelphia. And there hasn't been any closure on any one of those situations. So either he's holding out for a 1-year contract with somebody, and then he takes one of those as a plan B option. But we know there's mobility problems there. But he's 30 years old.
He is 30 years old. I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I don't think teams are lining up for him, but certainly a team could invite him in. But again, a lot of teams have seen Cody Franzen, and so they just probably don't like what they see based on what he's looking to earn.
Yeah. The Mihalik brothers are on the top 10, Zdeněk Mihalik and Milan Mihalik. So Mark Stewart is 33 years old. His contract was up with Winnipeg. There is a need for defense, but again, if it's an older defenseman who's lost a step, guys like Stewart and Jakob Kindl, who went from Detroit to Florida.
Another guy who's just he's slow. He's physical, but he's slow.
Now here are 3 guys that I am very confident will either get a 1-year deal or a PTO. I'm surprised Vanek hasn't signed. It might be he's holding out for a 1-year contract. Thomas Vanek.
Well, here's a quote from Michael Russo. He's got it on his Twitter from Vanek. This is something I've never been through. Usually I went early, so this is different. After the first week, I knew this would drag. I've had a good summer preparing himself. He's going to play, which I'm going to play, which most likely I am. So he feels confident he will. But he says he's going to have to make up his mind sooner than later, but including waiting for the Red Wings.
Well,
and he didn't say rating. That's Russo said that, but I guess maybe Vanek gave him the idea that that's what he's doing. So, we'll see.
I mean, we've heard talk about Vancouver. There's been talk ever since he was traded from Detroit that that he might go back, and there's an opportunity there. But again, this is when we did the preview of the Red Wings, with Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that, if they bring in a veteran guy, they've already brought in David Booth on a PTO. Now, maybe that's just a favor because I think he's from the Michigan area. But, this is a team that should be rebuilding, but they're going into a new building and they're probably wanting to make that team as strong as possible to maybe stay in the playoff race as long as possible. And I don't think the will is there for them to do a rebuild, although I think their fan base – Kevin said essentially their fan base saw what happened with Toronto and they want that. Thing is, everything for once in a blue moon, everything fell into place for Toronto where they got the number 1 pick. They hit on a couple draft picks. They've done things pretty well. And, they haven't won a Stanley Cup yet, but they seem on the road to being a competitive team. That's what Detroit wants after years and years of being that type of team. So we don't know what direction to go. But
I think with Vanek, it's about money. They know he can play.
Yeah. The other 2 are Daniel Winnick, who he was an effective 3rd, 4th line guy with Washington. You're not going to spend a ton of money on him if he's going to expect to get if he gets a 1-year deal, it's probably going to be for under $1 million, but he scored 12 goals last year, can take face-offs, can play the wing, can play center, can penalty kill. He's that type of versatile player. The other one is Roman Polak, and I continue to think until until he signs someplace else, either he signs a 1-year deal or takes a PTO someplace else, that Toronto is in the mix.
Here's the thing. Even if you think a guy was effective, even if you think a guy can have a certain role, a lot of those jobs are being replaced by young players now just because of cap reasons. Like, why spend the money on one of these guys, pulling them off the scrap heap, for lack of a better term, when you've got a young player you could throw in there and he's making a lot less money and the upside might be better?
Yeah, Cousin Eddie responded to us on Twitter.
What'd you say?
He says, Mike in Buffalo, you hurt the only feeling I had left. And then he has a picture of, it looks like Leonardo DiCaprio yelling and screaming from the Basketball Diaries or something.
Oh, okay. You hurt his feelings. I mean, this is.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm a mean bastard. Okay, so Athanasiou. There is some talk in the last 24 hours that the KHL option is growing as in a greater percentage.
Yeah, TSN had that from his agent, I believe.
Yeah, it just seems right now that they're. I mean, we mentioned this before. He's not in a good negotiating position. They have all the leverage in the sense that he can, somebody can offer sheet him, but probably that's not going to happen because we know that doesn't happen anymore. And there is no arbitration for somebody coming off their entry-level deal. So it's a question of whether they decide, whether they will accept a low-ball offer from the Red Wings, or he'll take the drastic step of going to the KHL. And we're not talking about like one of the premier KHL teams, more than likely. Those teams like Moscow and St. Petersburg, their rosters are already stacked. So it's probably going to be like a sort of a second division type of KHL.
Yeah, it seems like sort of a hollow threat. It's the only threat they got. But it does seem like a sort of a hollow threat when he can't go to one of these superpowers and the season's already started. Like, how far into the season do you want to go with the KHL? That's, to me, that's an issue, right? Because you're going to get paid less.
Yeah, I'm actually
rated no matter what they do.
Well, I'm actually surprised that this is the thing. I mean, will teams in Sweden or Finland or Switzerland or Germany take a player who is an RFA, an unsigned RFA from the NHL? We know that the KHL will because they've done it before. Radulov was a situation like that. But, so his options are rather if those leagues are not willing to, because they have transfer agreements with the NHL, if they're not willing to do that, then it's either KHL or he sits on his butt until he can reach some sort of agreement with the Wings.
Yeah, I still don't know if this is him doing it because he doesn't like the monetary offer, or the Wings doing it because they don't like what he's his playing. I don't know which way it's really rolling. Do you have any kind of feel for it?
No, I mean, I was assuming based on no, we know that he is going to that he's had some problems with Jeff Blashill, but I mean he had a really good year, so I'm just a little surprised that he is that there hasn't been any way of straightening this out. Now, if it was from the Red Wings side, I'm sure you would have had some takers out there in the NHL to take him on or to make a trade. I mean, he's a valuable commodity, a speedy forward, and we know that right now speed is a commodity that a lot of teams want to add. So I'm a little surprised that this hasn't gotten resolved, and maybe it will in the next week.
Maybe after Labor Day.
Yeah. Okay, let's get into our preview here. Eck is stuck in traffic, so we're not going to be able to get a hold of him today. We had some Google problems with him on the road, so we'll forge ahead and finish out the show with the preview of the Buffalo Sabres. Now, the Sabres were 33, 37, and 12 last year, 78 points, finished last in the Atlantic Division, 1 point behind the Detroit Red Wings. I was of the opinion, Russ, that Detroit was going to take a step backward this year. Eck and Kevin, I think, were, if this happened, if that happened, maybe they were going to take a step forward. I think the Sabres are going to take a step forward this year. Now, here are some of the changes.
How big of a step forward?
Well, that's the question. I'm just setting it up for the preview here because they had Anders Nielsen as the backup for Robin Lehner. He actually played pretty well in Lehner's absence, but Lehner is the key here because Lehner he statistically was pretty good last year. Now they've reacquired Chad Johnson via free agency, and you're going to have Lehner and Johnson. I think that's a solid goaltending tandem, but Lehner has to be more consistent. He has to avoid injury, and if he can do that, then I think they'll get average to above average goaltending. The area that they really addressed was on defense. They acquired Nathan Beaulieu from Montreal. They trade for Marco Scandella. They signed Antipin from the KHL. So they added three players who could very easily be in their opening night lineup. That's added to Bogosian, Ristolainen, Josh Georges, Jake McCabe. So they have numbers there. And what they're really hoping for from up front is health. The Eichel injury early in the year crippled them. He missed over 20 games. Sam Reinhart did not have a good sophomore season. They've moved out Marcus Foligno. They moved out Tyler Ennis, and they brought in Jason Pominville. Opozo was out late in the year. What do you think of the Sabres and what they've done over the summer?
I think overall, I think they're capable of getting to like the NHL's equivalent of 500 hockey. I think they could do that. I think they could go better than that if Lehner has like the best year of his career. I think they can go worse than that if Lehner doesn't do well, because Chad Johnson, you can't play him a ton of games. You just can't.
But he's a backup that I think can play more than the normal regular NHL backup. He's, I'm not saying he can play 40 games. I'm saying he could play 25, 27 games, and be effective. I think he can play more than just the guy that you put in for the second of back-to-back games. He's played well when he played in Buffalo the first time, and in Calgary, I thought he played pretty well when Elliott was having his struggles. So he actually kept Calgary, within reasonable distance of the playoff race. So, so I think, goaltending, I think there's still a question mark about Lehner and whether he can put it all together. You still can't get over the fact that when he was acquired and the first game that he played with the Sabres, he got injured, and it took him most of a couple months to come back. But they do have Linus Ullmark if one of them falters, but I think the pressure is on the shoulders of Robin Lehner. Now, defensively, I think Ristolainen is a number one defenseman in this league. I think he's a guy. He's big. He can play offensively. I think defensively he's pretty good. He can log major minutes, and a lot of teams in the league don't have that guy. I think I think that the additions of Scandella, Beaulieu, and maybe Antipin's a wild card because we don't know what he's going to do in the NHL. I think the key to the Sabres right now is getting good play out of Beaulieu, who was kicked out of Montreal without reason, I think, and getting something out of Zach Bogosian and out of Josh Georges, who are, Bogosian's still less than 30 years old. It's just he's been injured constantly, and he's underachieved.
He has. Look, their defense is good enough now where Brendan Gooley's going to not have to be rushed into the lineup. So I think that's a positive. I think the defense is pretty good. I think it's NHL average. That's what I think. And I think that's better than what it's been. And I think their goaltending is NHL average. And so I think the places they could really make it up is on offense. Justin Bailey didn't show a ton of offense. I've always told you that I'm not that high in him as an offensive player. He's a great athlete, but I don't know if he's a great hockey player. I don't think he's going to contribute a lot on the score sheet.
Well, and this is, being in Buffalo, I'm sort of following what their philosophy, what their approach to this season is. Obviously, they're hoping for production out of Opozo like they had before he got ill last year. They've brought back Jason Pominville, who I think was brought back more as a leader, sort of to replace Brian Giunta, who was the captain. And I'm not sure if they're going to name a captain, but Pominville has something still left in the tank. They want Evander Kane to have the same type of year that he had last year, either to benefit them in terms of making the playoffs or benefit them closer to the trade deadline so they can flip them for assets. But the one thing, and obviously they need and want Eichel and Reinhart to progress in their careers. But what they didn't have last year, and they had a lot of youngsters, guys like Baptiste and Bailey and Hudson Fasching.
Baptiste will get some goals for them. He will.
Yeah, I think there was no answer internally for the Sabres other than to give those players ice time when they may not have been ready. This year, they bring in Benoit Pouliot, who may be a good third, fourth line guy. They get Johan Larsson back.
And Larsson's a big deal because, in a full season, I think you can get 15, 17 goals out of him. He's had 10 already, and so I think that's what you can get out of Larsson. I think that is going to be a key. Like I said, these guys are a team that if everything hits right, they'll be trying to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
But if one or two things that are big, like last year, go wrong, then they're in trouble again.
Well, I agree with that, but I also think what the reason that they brought in a couple of these veteran players is at the end of the year they brought up Alex Nylander, the brother of William Nylander, their first round pick from 2016, and he was clearly not ready.
No.
And now I know for a fact that obviously he's a talented kid, and I think he'll be an NHL player, but I don't think that the organization wanted to put themselves in a position where Alex Nylander was going to be forced to play in the Sabres lineup. And the one thing that they've done under Jason Botterill and with Phil Housley is their AHL franchise was horrific last year. They had a couple good players like Nylander down there, and they really had no support. They've added a lot of players to make the Amherst competitive, to take some of the pressure off of those players, and to keep them down there and let them develop. I think a guy like Gergensons will get more ice time. Pouliot
this is to make it or break a year for him.
For Gergensons, oh yeah, well they signed him to a 2-year deal, but I think you're right. I think that but he did not fit what Dan Bylsma wanted to do, and
Evander Kane's got to get 30 goals.
Well, yeah, like I said, one way or the other. I'll go out on a limb here, and it's not a big limb, but I'll go out on a limb and say that Evander Kane will not be in Buffalo next season. I just don't think. I think he's either going to get traded. They will not sign him to an extension.
No, I don't think so either.
So I mean, one way or the other, he either stays and he walks, he has a big year and he walks in free agency, or they trade him at the deadline or trade him at some point during the season. But they want him to score. They need him to be, on one of those top two lines providing offense, because this team didn't have a ton of offense last year.
So at the end of the day, we have to pick whether they're making the playoffs or not.
I think that they're going to be in that group of 4 or 5 teams fighting for 7th and 8th.
Yeah.
But I don't think they are going to be the one of the two that make 7th and 8th. So I think they'll be in the race until at the very end. I think Eichel is going to have a great year.
Yeah.
I don't know whether he's going to sign the contract, but I think he's going to have a great year and probably put the pressure on the Sabres to give him big money next summer. But I don't think it's going to be enough. I think there's too many question marks with some of the veteran guys like Kane and a younger guy like Reinhart. So I think they'll get close, but not to the promised land of the playoffs.
I agree with that. I think they're going to come up just short.
Okay. All right. We'll end the show here. We will be back tomorrow. We're supposed to have Ty Anderson, our Bruins blogger, reporter.
That's great.
Jack of all trades. And we will be previewing the Boston Bruins. So that'll be something to look forward to, and I'm sure there'll be some news. in the hockey world. For Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.